Ngozi lifted the small plastic cup the nurse handed her and swallowed without question. Within minutes, her eyes grew heavy, her head spun, and she slumped back on the bed. To her, it was just medicine. To them, it was the doorway. Behind the curtain, silence fell. The doctor adjusted his gloves, his eyes cold. Ngozi wasn't just a patient anymore. She was about to become a supplier. In Onitsha, everyone trusted St. Mercy Hospital. Traders brought their sick children there. Taxi drivers rushed in when fevers hit, and mothers said prayers of gratitude for its existence. At the center of it all was Dr. Okoro, the man everyone called the angel of the poor. He gave scholarships, donated blood, and often walked through the market with free medicine for children. His name was sung on lips that had never even met him. To the outside world, he was more than a doctor. He was a savior. But not all saviors come with wings. Some wear white coats and gentle glasses. Some smile as they cut. Okoro's real fortune didn't come from healing wounds or curing fever. His wealth came from the silence of drugged patients, from organs neatly removed, and from families who never knew what was missing until it was too late. He wasn't feeding the poor, he was feeding a darker hunger. Ngozi was a simple trader, a mother who believed her prayers covered her life. Her stomach pain had lasted weeks, and she thought it was ulcer or infection. But when friends suggested she go to St. Mercy, she felt relieved. If Dr. Okoro touched her case, she believed she would live. That was her trust. That was her mistake. The nurse who smiled at her bed had already seen others come and go. The bed she lay on was not a stranger to stolen bodies. The medicine she drank had been given many times before. Ngozi didn't know she was walking into a trap that swallowed dozens. She thought she was entering a hospital for healing. In reality, she had entered a factory of parts, where patients were suppliers and the doctor was the dealer. The operating theater smelled of antiseptic and fear. Only a few trusted hands were ever allowed inside when Dr. Okoro performed his special procedures. Tonight, it was Nurse Ada and his assistant Chike, both sworn into silence long ago. Ngozi lay on the cold steel table, unconscious, breathing shallowly. To anyone else, she was a patient in need of surgery. To Okoro, she was a delivery waiting to be processed. The machine beeped steadily, echoing like a countdown to betrayal. Okoro's hands moved with calm precision, cutting into skin the way a butcher slices meat. There was no hesitation, no prayer, no remorse. His eyes didn't see a woman, only the prize inside her. Within minutes, blood glistened, and he reached deep, pulling free what he came for. A kidney, pink and wet, still warm. Package complete, he whispered. Outside, the rain hammered the windows like a chorus of warning that nobody heard. Across town, in a mansion guarded by high fences, a man waited. His name was Chief Agu, a business tycoon who wore wealth like a crown, but hid sickness in his veins. His kidneys were failing, and the world's hospitals had long rejected him. But in Nigeria, money can buy even what the body refuses. Chief Agu didn't care where the organ came from. He only cared that it worked. When Okoro's car pulled into the compound that night, he was welcomed like royalty. A stainless container was exchanged for a briefcase full of money. The chief smiled weakly, already imagining himself strong again. Okoro didn't count the notes. He didn't need to. Each organ had its price, and the chief had paid in full. As the gates shut behind him, no one knew a life had just been dismantled to keep another breathing. Mourning crept into Ngozi's ward like a thief. She opened her eyes slowly, her body weak, her mouth dry. She felt strange, hollow, as if something vital had been scooped out of her. A dull pain stabbed her side, but when she tried to move, the nurse rushed in with a smile. "Surgery was successful. You'll be fine," she said calmly. Ngozi nodded, confused, trusting. But she didn't know her body was no longer whole. Her husband arrived later, relief written across his face. He hugged her gently, thanking Dr. Okoro for saving his wife. Okoro smiled warmly, patting the man's shoulder. "She will live a long life," he said softly. But deep down, only he knew that Ngozi's body had been sold piece by piece. And the cruelest part, she was alive but incomplete. Weeks later, Ngozi noticed something was wrong. The pain never truly left her side. She was always tired, always weak, no matter how much she rested. At first, she thought it was normal recovery. But one afternoon, at a family gathering, her cousin, who was a nurse in another town, touched her side gently and frowned. "Ngozi, this scar, are you sure it was ulcer surgery?" The question struck like lightning. Ngozi hesitated. That's what she had been told, but she suddenly realized no test, no scan, no real explanation had been given, only the word of the doctor she trusted. Fear began to creep into her chest. She remembered the bitter medicine, the dizziness, the blank hours she couldn't recall. Something inside her whispered, "You walked in whole, you may not have walked out the same." The town still praised Dr. Okoro, but shadows were starting to grow. Families whispered about patients who went in healthy and came out weaker. Rumors of missing organs spread through the streets like smoke from a hidden fire, but no one dared confront the doctor. He was too powerful, too loved, too untouchable. And besides, who would believe the poor over the man who built schools and donated medicines? Ngozi, however, couldn't shake the suspicion. She began asking quiet questions, listening closely when others spoke of strange scars, unexplained sickness, sudden weakness. And slowly, the puzzle pieces began to connect. There was a pattern. Too many stories sounded like hers. Too many patients walked in for help, but walked out incomplete. She realized the truth was closer than she wanted to admit. St. Mercy wasn't just a hospital. It was a hunting ground. Determined, Ngozi confided in her cousin and a journalist friend. Together, they hatched a plan. A hidden recorder, a planted patient, and a stage complaint would be their bait. They needed evidence, proof the doctor couldn't deny. Fear knotted in Ngozi's chest, but anger burned hotter. She would not let others suffer as she had. The man she once trusted had to be exposed. The night of the sting, the hospital lights glowed as usual, patients coming and going. But inside one ward, a planted volunteer lay on the bed, pretending to be sedated. Okoro entered, gloves ready, his eyes sharp. He whispered to his nurse, "Prepare the package." The recorder caught it all. Every word, every sound of instruments clinking, every truth he had hidden in shadows was finally captured. The evidence spread like wildfire. The next morning, newspapers screamed the headlines, "Angel of the Poor" or "Merchant of Organs." Families stormed the hospital, police raided the theater, and suddenly, Dr. Okoro was no longer untouchable. His empire of lies collapsed in days. In court, his face looked pale, stripped of its mask as witnesses testified one by one. The saint had finally been unmasked as a thief. Ngozi sat quietly in the courtroom, her hand pressed against the scar on her side. Her life had been stolen, but her voice had become the weapon that ended his reign. And as the judge's gavel slammed, sentencing him to life in prison, a silence fell. Because the truth was out. The evil doctor who stole his patient's kidney had finally been caught.